Hello and welcome to Not Replaced Yet. My name is Nick Bushkar and I'm here with my brother Jesse. Say hello, Jesse.
Hello, everybody.
I am excited for today's show because finally we're going to bring someone else on. You don't have to just listen to the two of us alone. I know we can talk a lot. And Jesse, tell us a bit about our guest today.
Yeah, today's guest, it's our first guest, as Nick said. It's one of our oldest and best friends. Honestly, one of the most talented people in our circles.
Yeah, his name is Cory Brinson. He is a senior marketer, graphic designer, strategist, professor, board member, dad, creative force, and I could keep going.
Yeah, we've known Cory since a long, long time ago. Baseball teams and summer camp, and then eventually we wound up being camp counselors at that summer camp, and then we wound up being employees there, and we wound up being board members there, and just generally adulting together. And we've been with Cory ever since.
And he is now a VP at EP+Co. He teaches at UNC and somehow also finds time to contribute to one of the hottest baseball podcasts out there.
Yeah, it's really impressive. And then what really kind of levels that up is how he brings all of that creativity and strategic intelligence home. Cory and his wife, Amy, have a son, Brody, who is autistic, presented challenges, learning opportunities, many things that he has to apply his energy to benefit. And he's found this beautiful way to merge like what he's good at and his family and love all together. So I don't want to spoil it. We're going to get into it.
No, we're just scratching the surface. Cory is going to be a regular on this show, and so this episode is just a taste.
Yeah, if you're listening, you're in on the ground floor. It's the first one out the gate. So enough talk. Let's get into it. Cool. Well, let's get into it. Cory, what's up, man? Thanks for joining. We will have, at this point, the audience will have heard an intro. But, basically, like if Nick and I had a third brother, you're it. So we know each other very, very well. And we talk about this stuff. It's kind of the impetus of the podcast in general was Nick and I talking about this stuff regardless. We think it could benefit others. And you're in that camp, too. Like we'd be having these conversations even if there weren't, webcams and microphones involved. So why don't you tell people what you do for a day job, and we can go from there.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys. I'm super excited to be here. So name's Cory Brinson. I guess a formal introduction would be Senior Vice President of Brand Planning at EP+Co. We're a full-service ad agency based out of Greenville, South Carolina. We're owned by one of the big holding companies, the Interpublic Group, or IPG. And within that, I lead brand strategy and planning for a large swath of our clients. I've been at EP for if you take my original 6.5 years, I took a year off and I've been there for another year and a half since. So about 8 years. I've been in strategy and planning for a little over a decade now, advertising a few years more than that, just because I started with you, Jesse, in the development side. And I guess, in that time, I mentioned I had like a boomerang back to EP. Kind of did my own thing, did some consulting work, and then got a full-time position leading creative strategy for Chewy, based out of Boston. Didn't really like it. It's a little slow pace for me on the client side, and especially like from an e-com platform standpoint.
Are you allowed to say that out loud in your like separation agreement? They're not going to come after you.
I think it's
saying you weren't a big fan.
Yeah. I mean, like if you're talking about like the position versus the company, right? Chewy as a company is an incredible company. It's I still think there's some awesome lessons to be had in terms of marketing when it comes to Chewy and how they deal with like customer service and those things. I think for me, in where I'm at in my career in terms of like wanting to build something, especially like impacting high level creative, it just wasn't right for me. It's a lot of display advertising, a lot of like on-site advertising and creative. And, I think it just wasn't what I thought it was going to be. It wasn't fulfilling me creatively as I thought it was. So came back to EP, have been enjoying it. And I think I like the pace of an agency side way more than I like the pace of a client side, just for sheer, you know, creative itch, if you will.
I think that's a good segue into your actual sort of second job, because you don't just do that. You work on some other stuff. So why don't you tell us about that too?
Yeah. I think I would imagine, just like you guys, when you're in marketing or advertising or even content, you're finding outlets to um, like scratch that creative itch and try different things and new things. And I've always had a knack or even a desire to consider myself a graphic designer, um, and have done so. It's been fun, in strategy and planning. You're doing a lot of decks and building a lot of presentations. And at one point, I was told I needed to get my deck to a art developer like 2 weeks in front of my deadline, and I said, well, that's 2 weeks of work I don't get to have, because I'm just having somebody else develop my or design my stuff. So I said, you know what, I'm just going to do this myself, and learn how to do it. And I've continued to do that. And on the side, I love, I don't know if you can tell, I'm a big sports fan.
I was going to say, how
Of
long have you been a Yankees fan?
Yeah, Yankees
Yeah,
guy,
yeah,
huh?
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
All
We
right.
just took 2 out of 3 this weekend, so
Go Sox.
um, go Sox. And you know, when I was living in South Carolina, the hard thing, because I live in New England now, I live in Maine, and one of the hard things is like, how do you connect to a community that's impassioned as like the Red Sox without living near it? Nick, I'm sure you feel that way, being an Arsenal fan,
Oh yeah.
across the pond, if you will. So I started listening to a podcast called Section 10. It was, this is back 2016 or so. And I just loved it. I loved listening to it. It gave me like a group to listen to. And all of a sudden one day I was like, you know what? And they were part of like the Barstool network back then. And I said, you know what? I think they're like missing out on some like fun graphics that they could be implementing into their social. So I was involved. I was like always posting in their subreddit, just having fun, interacting with the community. I started posting these, and their producer reached out to me on the side and said, "Hey, these are pretty good. Would you ever want to do these for the podcast?" And I said, "Yeah." And not long after that, the host, contracted, had come up with, at Barstool, he was negotiating a deal to go to DraftKings, and I've been with them ever since. They kind of asked me to join along, and so I've had the pleasure to design a lot of the visual systems, um, and I guess like all the graphics and episodes and everything you would see from the podcast from a visual standpoint, for our Section 10 podcast, which is the Red Sox podcast, and then for Baseball's Dead, which is the national baseball podcast that we do as well. So both of them kind of high performing. They're part of the Underdog Network, and it's been a lot of fun. So yeah, it's again, I think, in professional world and your side jobs, like whatever that is, you're looking for creative outlets, and that's kind of been what I've done. So I've just kind of chased that road until I've found areas that make me feel good creatively and professionally. So yeah.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch from the sidelines. So just to sum up, day job is helping some of the biggest and most ambitious brands and solving their challenges, whatever they may be, from sales to consumer perception to
Yeah, and maybe I
sentiment.
and maybe I add some, um, I qualify that by saying, my brand portfolio is brands like John Deere, LinkedIn. I got to write like the global social strategy for LinkedIn, travel the world and taught it in their offices. Led a lot of the content and social strategy for a lot of the big movie releases for 20th Century Fox and in their late years, Bohemian Rhapsody, Deadpool 2, I'm trying to think, New Mutants, a couple like smaller ones, like Ad Astra, The Art of Racing in the Rain. So, had a lot of fun. Oh, Kingsman: The Golden Circle. That was a fun one as well.
Hmm.
But yeah, like to Jesse's point, it's not necessarily the small mom and pop shops, but larger Fortune 100 brands, and it's been a blessing to be able to do those.
Yeah, yeah. And that brand list, even the ones I know, it extends down to infinity. And I think that's one of the pieces that we got to cut our teeth at the beginning when we were working together in agency life, and then it's been so cool to see you like skyrocket from there and just keep doubling down, and like we're still doing similar things, but also like from different perspectives, and it's been awesome. And then the podcast work is like completely separate. Like I think your career and trajectory would be impressive with none of that. It'd be very impressive with none of that. But then you add in the nights and weekends and nooks and crannies contributing to, I mean, Section 10 is the number one Red Sox podcast, I
Hmm.
would imagine, and then has broader appeal beyond just fans of Red Sox, and Baseball is Dead is expanding out. And, the visuals, we'll pull some visuals up in a few minutes when we get to talking about the AI work there. But yeah, so when Nick and Cory and I were talking again on one random weekend, as we do, it was like, well, what could we talk about? And it's like, well, what wouldn't we talk about on a podcast about AI? Because now to segue, you're using AI in very diverse, myriad ways, given the diverse, myriad challenges you approach day to day, week to week. Because one day you're saying, how can I increase foot traffic to a big box retailer reliably, measurably, creatively, right? And then the very next day, same day job is, how do I sell more widgets, or how do I change a negative perception? And then you go home and you say, well, how do I bring storytelling to life through a very uniquely curated style? And AI is helping you at different places and facets of all of those things, and you're kind of onboarding them, being selective. Like, why don't you just start at a high level day job? How are you using AI? And just I'll pause there open endedly on purpose. Like, how are you using AI day job?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. Like the narrative about AI in advertising and marketing, especially at your highest levels, your WPPs, IPG, Omnicom, it is. I mean, if you look at any of the earning statements, any of the earning calls, AI is being foundationally implemented across, I would say, every aspect of agency world. Where do we see that, right, on a day-to-day basis? You see that like in terms of like for the boots on the ground employees. You see it being implemented in our own chatbots and our own GPTs, if you will. I know there's a couple different agencies that are investing in their own like learning model. I don't know how many of them are trying to, just piggyback off of, OpenAI AI or any of those things. That gets a little bit granular, but I will say that if you think about the modern marketing professional, and especially like somebody with me in strategy, AI has to be um, a part of your toolbox today. And it's been incredible to see it kind of fast tracked into it. Similar to how I would say like Zoom and Google Slides replaced phone teleconferences and PowerPoint presentations or what we say Keynote, right? Like it used to be like hey, pass around the Keynote and upload. It's that kind of like quick transformational technology that has really streamlined a lot of what we do.
Actually,
Because
can I pause you right there?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm interested. So, kind of specifically, is it ChatGPT and then there's a massive drop off, or would you what specific tools would you say has been
No.
integrated in that way?
This is what I was going to say is I'm getting to is there's so many different things and use
Hmm.
cases that I think it is hard right now to say, okay, what should you be using or what can you be, because you can use it all, right? Like you can use um, the simplest thing is opening up uh, Google Slides and using Gemini's uh, image creator in a deck if you're trying to develop a concept for a trade show booth. You can have ChatGPT literally write you briefs. You can use the deep research function to literally go and do research for you like a junior strategist or a junior planner would. So the question then becomes is a little bit more individualistic, because I know there are colleagues out there who are like, no, I'm not going to use that. It's too scary. Or no, I'm not going to do that because say I'm a copywriter and I don't want to lose my edge as a writer. And so I'm not going to use those things as prompts. So for me, on a day to day basis, right? Like what programs am I using and what use cases do they have? Well, it depends on the ask, right? Like if you think about from a strategy perspective, we are constantly being asked to do more with less. And I think that's global, right? Like in terms of marketing. It is media, it is creative, it is strategy, it's accounts. Like everyone is being asked to be more efficient, to be more effective. And how do you do that? And I kind of take that mentality when I go into various projects is, okay, how can I do this better? If I'm eliminating primary research, if I'm eliminating secondary research sources and subscription models that cost tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars for subscriptions to get secondary research, or if I'm not trying to um, spend, I don't know, 100K on, your MRIs or Simmons and doing trying to get into syndicated research. What can I do? Well, you're kind of left with like two things, right? You get to your foundational principles of strategy and planning. We call it the 5 C's, right? We're gonna look into um, the company, the competitor or the category, the consumer. We're gonna look at culture, and we're gonna look at channel, and that's kind of like how we do baseline research. It's that framework that we utilize. So I'm either going to take the time and do a lot of desk research, and I'm going to print out all these reports, and I'm going to dig into every platform that I have access to, or I'm going to use a little bit of a shortcut, which is ChatGPT, right? So, for use case one, I would say it's research,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's how do I get smarter, quicker? How do I go deeper, faster? It's a very awesome tool for that, and especially like if you're utilizing one of the paid models, you're getting into advanced reasoning, you're using deep research, it can at least understand the questions that you're asking. And I'm sure you guys have talked about it, especially from a GPT standpoint. Your prompts and how you ask questions are just as essential as the output that you're getting. It's even more essential to what you're getting out of it. So, you've got to be very deliberate on how you're prompting GPT. What are you asking? Those kind of things. Internally, if you're dealing with kind of confidential information, are you making sure that we have our own GPT that allows us to upload, say, our client information or client
Mhm.
background so that we can ask more specifics around those.
Oh,
Um,
do you at EP, do you have a culture of like a certain amount of privacy that you have so you are using the enterprise version, and is that directing you, or is ChatGPT more of a personal choice, um, and it's just that you happen to have access to the enterprise level, so that maybe that gives you a little extra superpowers?
I would say that it depends on the ask, right? If I'm utilizing client information that needs to be kept confidential, obviously we're never dealing with like personal information. So
I don't have
like
customer
from a
data or anything like
yeah, yeah,
that.
yeah. Nothing to that sort. Anything we would even get from an agency perspective would have any like customer data wiped out. It would be all in aggregate and privatized and all that good stuff. So anytime we're dealing with that kind of information or data, sales data, for example, anything like that, I would utilize our internal tool. It's kind of like the mandate from IPG, and that's just
Hmm.
uh, information security, right? In terms of
I
like
mean,
our
that's
clients.
good big company data governance. Is they're going to
Yeah,
give you the avenues that have been vetted and their IT team is aware of, and yeah.
exactly. And so, from a more macro standpoint, when we're talking about things that are not that, I'm going to go into ChatGPT. I have found that the responses are better. I have found that the when I am trying to challenge it on uh, trying to think about strategic ways in, right? Because the net of all this is how can I create a more solid strategy that is backed by data and reasoning and all those things, and then can I find something that is um, inspirational and creative? Those are the two jobs that I have as a planner. Is how do I sell an idea um, into a CMO or a client that is backed by data that shows, hey, this has a logical, rational line of thinking, but it's also inspirational because we have to inspire our creative partners and to think about things in a different way, to see different avenues in a different way. And for someone like me who I would say I grew up more on the research side in strategy and planning, I'm always looking for that like human backup. I dig into culture a lot. I look for how do I connect data and trends to conversation and culture, right? Like that's where I find my special sauce as a planner has been, is like being able to think about that. Where I struggle sometimes is how do I write that inspirationally? Like I'm not a copywriter. I don't do that, but I need that thought, or that, like we used to call it, like your magical collection of words that just like is like, oh my god, it created this amazing idea. It sprung this. And we're so, I would say modern marketing strategy and creative are a little bit more locked. It's never or like in lockstep. You're never like walking in and I'm having my magician aha moment anymore. That's very like circa 2012, 2015 in terms of like what you're doing. I would hope it's been out of that, but I have found that like, hey, I want to work with my creative partner on this, and can we springboard from that, and then is it going to like have a big enough idea, and how are we going to sell it into clients, right? That's kind of the magical niche. So I would say that ChatGPT has allowed me to you know train the way in which it searches information same way I would train a junior planner per se to say, hey, these are the types of this type of information I'm looking for. So for a consumer, I want to know, or let's say for a company, I want to know, has it been in the news lately? I want to understand its earnings statements over the last 24 months. I want to understand what is it, is it being talked about? How is it doing financially? Like all those different things, right? It's good, it's bad. Same thing like when you get into the category and its competitive set, I want to understand market share. So what it does is it allows me to dig on the things that I think are going to be tough for it to dig into. Social media conversation, Reddit threads, finding like the little nooks and crannies that like differentiate strategy. Um, I teach a I help teach a class for the University of North Carolina on creative strategy and advertising. And one of the really cool things that you get to see on the other side of this is you give everyone we give the students a task and they go through this 5 C's and everybody finds a lot of the same thing. And this is how it plays out in the real world, especially in like a pitch situation. We're going to find the same thing when it comes to consumers. We're going to find the same thing when it comes to the category, the company. When we start looking at culture, when we start looking at channels and different ways in, and we start thinking about how we interpret that information differently, that's what differentiates you as a planner, as a strategist, and then as a creative agency. So while I'm not having to do a lot of that digging and finding and allowing it, I can be more efficient, more effective with my time, thinking and digging into those places that I know will differentiate our strategy. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. I do wonder, I just hear a lot of chat about ChatGPT. Um,
Mm-hmm.
have you ever used any of the other deep research tools like inside Claude, inside Perplexity, inside Gemini, anything like that? Or do you feel like you're
Brock,
solely
No.
focused inside?
You're a big Twitter guy. Anything?
I don't use Grok. I have found this like the next level of this was like, okay,
I found
past
Grok very underwhelming.
yeah, it's I find it to be exactly what you might think a GPT from or an AI system from X or Twitter would be, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
one
Oh,
thing
that checks out.
I think it does a tremendous job is image generation for celebrities. I
Sure.
like very
Do you,
specific. It's a very specific use case. Um, and it's funny, Jesse. You and I had this conversation the other day because the other side of it is not only am I using it for research and answer to your question, Nick, is no, I don't. Maybe I should. Like this is
Mm.
where like we talk a lot about AI integration in every level of advertising. There's not a lot of like implementation of that. So it's on you as the individual to teach yourself to find your that we have some basics around our model and our GPT that we have, but in terms of what's the latest and greatest, no, that's on me to like dig into and find and discover. And so it's in those, like Jesse mentioned, like the nights and weekends when I'm interested in finding something different, that's when I'd have to do it. So I for that use case, I have found that GPT does exactly what I need it to do for now. Right?
It's
sure.
the
It's
it's the diminishing returns question, right? You could spend all of your time looking for the better tool. Today, we're in this tidal wave moment where, at the beginning, it's like, oh, I heard of them all, and then 1 week something happened where it's like, oh, I hadn't heard of that one this week, and then 2 weeks later, it's completely impossible for any human to hear of all of the AI companies and startups and everything, right? Like we're well past like So then how do you do that? You find people you trust, you find communities of people that are trying to solve similar problems that you
Yeah,
are.
If
you
only
say
there
you.
were a podcast to try and help people learn
Ooh,
into these
self
things. I
plug,
mean,
self
it's
plug
crazy.
achieved.
I listen
Crazy.
to not replace yet.
There you go.
Well, I will say just as a thought experiment, it would be interesting. I wonder if it would be helpful, like throwing the same prompt into. I would do ChatGPT, Claude, and Perplexity just to try like three at the same time, and then see if there were any differences or if you get better
Yeah,
responses
and
from one or the other.
that's exactly how I approached it with our internal model, because I was like, what is this good at? What is it not? What are its limitations? What is it at par at? You know,
Mm.
like
Listen,
one of the
you're
things I saw was like you input sales data and it's like at a mathematical level pretty like similar, right? It's going to be able to determine statistics. It's going to be able to deduce outcomes from data and those kind of things. Um, but yeah,
the side.
Jesse, what were you guys?
I was just sorry to cut you off. I was going to say the side by side thing is interesting, and it takes me back in time. I think you were sitting on my couch in the front like guest room area when we were saying like, is GPT-4 really better than 3.5? And this was like 2 years ago or something.
Yeah,
And we were doing side by side stuff, and I forget the prompt that you had an aha moment about. You were like, wait, like you look at this and look at this, and it was just one of those mind blown moments. And yeah, the side
yeah,
by side testing is how you do it.
it's incredible. And I'll tell you this, like it has changed how I approached image generation, right? Like, you know, I think one of the first forays I got into, because I'm very deep into Photoshop, was like, oh, cool, Photoshop has, you know, generative AI. You can change backgrounds and things like that. It's pretty underwhelming. Pretty
Relative to
underwhelming,
the
but
promise, right?
It could
relative to
remove text pretty well. It can
it,
remove.
I will say clean up. There's a
Mhm.
lot of things that I utilize its generative AI tools internally a lot. And there are some things that it does extremely well. Replacing like a bottle in your hand with a can or something like
Mhm.
there are ways to make it work. But I got really into it, and it was around that same time, Jess, around Midjourney,
Mm-hmm.
and this kind of like gets into the side job of like, okay, how do I start using this more effectively, and how can I use it in creatively in terms of generating any image that is in my head, right? And Midjourney was an incredible start. What it did was it saved me a tremendous amount of time of looking for stock imagery that I could potentially spend hours editing. And it got me, you know, back then it got me 65% of the way there, which was way good enough, right? It
Mm-hmm.
gave me like things I could edit and put faces on. And as it continuously improved to where you're adding character reference or image references, and it was basing what you wanted as your output based on some of the inputs you were utilizing. I think we can look at the one right here on the top right as a great example of something that I do recurring. And I had been using Midjourney for an extremely long time. And Jesse had mentioned one day, have you played with ChatGPT's version? I said, no, I hadn't. Like, I will say that I don't even subscribe to Midjourney anymore because I think that ChatGPT's image generation is one of the top that I've seen. And especially like what I do is we have this like little sub brand called Clark's Ketchup, and it's the series MVP, and it's sponsored by Clark's Ketchup. And I created a Clark's Ketchup, and click that Clark's Ketchup link, Jesse, and you can
Where
kind
is
of
it?
go in the top
Oh,
right there. Yeah. Because this is gonna, yeah, we can go to this profile because this is gonna show, you know, I utilized this logo that was designed in Midjourney, by the way, and cleaned up in Illustrator, and I I made it because it was like, okay, I don't want to have a basic thing, but we have, you know, this character, this thing. And what I've been able to do is create a prompt inside of ChatGPT. And go back to the illustrative style real quick. Like this, yeah. I've created a prompt within ChatGPT of like, I'm going to continuously give you new scenarios. Every time I give you a new scenario, I want you to erase anything previously, and let's start with our basic. We have a skeleton, he has red eyes, it's this vector style, it's 3 colors, yada yada, and then I will tell you what I want. And it creates this image. I pull that into Illustrator and clean it up. And maybe add some things or clean things up. Like I gave it a picture of it. This is a home run celebration we put on the mascot head and the players. And so I utilize this for one. If we go back to the main feed, like, yeah, it's I think we beat, we beat the Royals for this one. And so, and it was on Mother's Day. So it's like, how can I create this? But then scroll all the way down, Jess, because I think this is an interesting like show of the evolution. Is some of this stuff was from last year. You can see
here's a different skeleton.
Yeah.
The different type, and you can see the consistency that ChatGPT is using today. This, like at one glance, it's like, oh yeah, that's Clark's. It's got the kind of skeleton, and I was doing a lot of the same things. I was going in, I was cleaning it up, and doing some things, and then earlier in our ChatGPT in the Clark's Capture days, keep scrolling down, just because I think some of these
hold
are.
on, did you have to add? I have to ask. Did you add the soul patch manually for Valkyrie?
Yeah.
Okay. Solid.
Nice.
Yep. So
it's the drizzle.
Yep. So some of this I'm just using Photoshop and those kind of things. I'm trying to find one. Keep going. Oh, on the right hand side here. On the right hand side, you can see like I did a Darth Vader post. This was in Midjourney, covered in Ketchup.
Yeah.
That was last year for then. Go to the one above it. This is and Clark's is a fake ketchup brand from Salem, Massachusetts. So we have a very gothic horror theme.
Sure.
And so this is when we released the hot and spicy. So this was utilizing ChatGPT to create this kind of table spread motif with a black. No, this was Midjourney, a black ketchup bottle, photorealistic. And then I went into and I found like a label mock-up to give it. I can just create my label. It mocked it up and gave it that curve, and then adding some lighting effects on it so that it looks, very much like a bottle. So that's been a lot of fun creating on that.
Let me interject here because you've used a lot of different terms when you're describing this creative output, vector style, like
photorealism.
Yeah, I want to make sure the audience understands you're no slouch when it comes to creative chops. Like Cory, we've known Cory for a million years. He's been incredibly artistic since a child. And, you're very modest and humble about it, but you could get a high-paying graphic designer job if you decided to at any point. And so my question then is like, oh boy, thundering outside. Hope the internet stays up. My question is that, are you worried that this becomes accessible to anyone at all? Because your confidence in understanding how to even start with a blank canvas and getting the output that you want is extremely tuned and trained. Like, you haven't done this for a full-time job, but you've done it for a part-time job for 30,000 hours. Like what stands out in terms of like, what is the tool doing versus your design sensibilities here?
I think again, it's efficiency and effectiveness. So like, let's go to the section 10 page, Jess. I think that it would be a great example. And we can keep scrolling because I don't think we've done much lately. You can just keep going, and I'll tell you when to stop.
Mm-hmm.
I would say like my thought. Okay. No. I think I keep going. I use Illustrator for that Mickey K line graphic. Um,
I like the Hey Arnold call out in
yep,
one of
yep,
those.
yep. Oh, this is a great one. Yeah. So no, I think I just used Photoshop for that. Keep it going. Keep it going.
All right, let's keep going. We're gonna find it.
Yeah. So Jesse, I think the answer or the question that you're answering is like, or you're asking is like, do you think you're just going to get replaced? Right. Hence the name of the podcast. And I would
Mm-hmm.
say that how I have always approached things. And I think this is, and you're on the like the even a more front, like what would you say, forward looking way of this. Like I I just look at new technology and emerging technologies as new tools in my potential toolbox, right? So uh, AI has given me the ability to do things in on such a fast scale. Keep it going. On such a fast scale because we do 3 or 4 episodes a week, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're talking about an episode, we're talking 2 to 3 hours an episode. And so what we're getting are all these different bits and all these different inside jokes that are so crazy and are so like unfathomable. It would take me so long to create some of these images. And let's just keep it going because I think we did a bunch like during the off season because like during the season we have so much that
With
is
actual games, you're
yeah, just
participating
actual
in.
like content and things. So the off season is where we were like working on getting stuff together.
I was gonna say y'all were
Um,
just guests at Fenway, right? Like
yeah,
y'all
yeah, yeah,
were like there's plenty of real stuff to talk about, but yeah, off season it's
yeah,
more exploratory.
exactly. And so what it's allowed me to do is like take some of these like crazy bits. This is a great one. Bad sneeze. That is using Jared as a character. Now, if I tell you I utilized AI for that, we could all probably see that, right? I
Yeah, it wouldn't shock
he
me. Yeah,
had
it
an
has.
incredible he had an incredible sneeze that he lost his voice right before the podcast started. And the title of the episode was Bad Sneeze. I don't have a picture of Jared sneezing, but it was
You
like
don't want to
the entire
pretend.
bit. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
the entire bit. So how can I make that? So keep going. We can get off this one because that one was just like, oh my god,
Well, but the
that's
idea
his.
here is that you started with someone a Midjourney. You know, let me guess your workflow here, right?
Yep.
You obviously have your like borderline, you know,
Yeah, I
your
have my
banner graphics
template.
and
I have
things.
my template.
Yeah, and so what you're starting out creatively and said, all right, I need a representation of this dude sneezing. So I would generate some rando sneezing in Midjourney. Hey, a person 3/4 turn looking at the camera, you know, with sunglasses on, maybe, especially if you already have the picture of him, you're gonna like use, and then
Hmm.
you would impose that face over top of it. Now, what I would do is I would use ChatGPT. This was March 20th. Oh man, y'all are posting a ton like that. Those
Yeah.
hundreds of
Yeah.
photos are in the last like 2.5 months. So you could have used
Yep.
GPT for this. Is that what you did?
So I think I did do that for this one, or if whatever, and more than likely, what I had to do was expand it, because a lot of times, like I think I added like the hand holding a tissue, I added some of
Right.
the spray, I added the color overlay to give it that like lighting because he
Sure.
sits in a like green lit room. So yeah,
Right.
I just said like here's an image of Jared, make it look like he's sneezing,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then
Mhm.
kind of expand it out more. Let's keep it going because I think there was some really good. Okay, That's a great example. So we have the number one prospect in baseball, Roman Anthony. He is withering away in AAA. It's a huge conversation right now. But during spring training, he had some incredible at bats. And so what I did was I was like, this whole like welcome to the Roman Empire thing kept coming out, and I was like, what would Roman look like if he was a Roman soldier, right? And so I had a reference photo that I wanted, and I asked it to create a battle worn Roman soldier with an iconic Roman helmet, and I did variations of that until I found one that I really liked, and I said, I wanted a Roman village in the background. I wanted a high bogey, so it would be a good depth of field. I wanted dramatic lighting. I wanted him to have like blood on his face, and so it gave me one. And if you were to think about this, the face is what I edited. So I superimposed his face and then pulled in some of the blood splatter. But because the facial generation, and you're using GPT's model, and because it can use that character reference and get it pretty close, I can take my skills and mask out his face until I get to a point and do your color and lighting corrections to where it's like, shit, that looks pretty good. But we're talking about, oh my God, he just hit a mammoth home run. Everybody's, Twitter is blowing up about this. We need a graphic up.
Yeah.
In 30 minutes,
right.
This is the end result.
10 minutes is a home run for the brand and the group, and an hour is nothing. In an hour, everyone's done and they're elsewhere.
Everyone's done. It's not shareable. It's not part of the conversation. So that's like where do I see it for two things? Like in my day job, advertising and planning, it's allowing me to be more efficient with my time, because that's what we base everything off of, right? It's how many hours are you billing? How much can you get in those hours? And especially like do more with less, right? So it's allowing me to be more efficient with my time, more effective with my brain.
I'm hanging on this really quick, just because, sorry to cut you off. This is a baseball show. This is a baseball post. It's got 1,500 likes, and the comments are, now this is art. And top 10 graphic of the season, and the season hasn't even started yet. I thought it was someone talking about AI, but they said AL. The Roman Reigns is going to run the AL this year, and this Photoshop goes hard. So I don't know. I mean, from a branding perspective, like, it's a baseball show, and we're talking about the graphic design, like, creativity there that you wouldn't have had the time, that the show wouldn't have had the resources, said another way, to bring to life. So this is just making the most of the new creative opportunity that you're presented with. Is that kind of
that's exactly right, man. And that's what we want, right? Like the special sauce isn't, especially the podcast, is not the baseball talk. Yeah, we come for the baseball talk, you come for the takes, but it's like the bits, the extra, like we've talked about it for this podcast. It's what are those things that make you different, and being able to be the visual and design arm of the podcast and take those bits and those ideas and bring them to life visually so that our fans can share them as currency on their social. Like that's really cool. And Jesse, we had a conversation because one of the things that there was a huge like conversation that I kind of defended myself against on Reddit. And I mentioned like that's where I was posting all my original graphics. And I've been a big Reddit supporter. And it was a conversation around AI and pushback, and like we shouldn't be using it. And in fact, like one of our show's hosts, Coley Mick, he's adamantly against AI as a creator. Like he's using the music. He's like, I I don't want it. Like I have an issue with it. And I can like being in a creative field, I can understand that. I really can. I think that for me, it allows me to be more creative. It allows me to do things that I don't think I could do in the time I need to do them in. It allows me to explore mediums and ideas that I didn't think were possible. In my day job, we've taken things like storyboards and animatics that used to take a serious amount of time, generate them utilizing AI, put motion to them, and all of a sudden we have an animatic for testing and developed in 6 hours that used to take $20,000 a storyboard artist and an animator to do. And I get that is a threat to various like jobs and disciplines. But wasn't Photoshop to the you know animators and hand drawn artists
yeah.
The difference here is
wasn't
the training, right? The difference is that the reason that these things can do the things that they can do is that it sucked up all the data on the internet. And so then, because it sucked up all the data on the internet, mostly without asking, and sometimes that was okay, and sometimes it probably wasn't okay, now it can output these things at such a great level. That's the crux, right? It's not that it is a tool that can act like Photoshop couldn't do the things because it stole is a harsh word there, but it might be stolen. It stole from animators. So that's where the ethical implication
Oh
comes in.
yeah, and that's like a conversation that like I feel like it's greater than me, right? Like I'm not making the decision. I'm making the decision to use the technology, I guess, but I'm also making the decision that the technology from my employers, both in my professional world and in my interest world, are saying these are essential tools. Like if we're not utilizing them and being the best at them, we're going to be lapped behind. And so I've got to adapt. I've got to figure it out. I'm no longer, I think Picasso is an incredible artist, but I also think that there are incredible photographers out there, and the medium and the output is what is going to dictate the the popularity, right? Like I could have just created a Roman soldier, and maybe it looked like Roman Anthony and maybe it didn't, but I had to utilize my tools and my talents and my creative thought to bring it to life to a point in which I thought our fans would appreciate it. The ethics of that are tough, man. We're tough, but we live in a capitalist society, and so if I'm trying to, make a home for my family and provide and do those things, I've got to adapt to what the world around me tells me. And if there's anything I've learned in this industry, it's that I need to adapt quicker than the others because I've seen what happens to the others.
The quote that like resonates with me, or Nick, you were about to say something. Go ahead.
I was just going to say the only reason we invited you on here is because you told us you had the answer to the ethical question, and now I feel like you don't. So it's kind of I don't know, man.
I don't.
Bait and
I don't.
switch.
I wish I did. It sucks because it's like these models have, like to your point, learned on the back of so many talented people and so much work and so much history. Is it any different than looking up an answer when we were looking up book reports in an encyclopedia? Is it any different than Google, which was able to connect pieces of information? Now we're just like trying to connect notes and pixels. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
it's a little different. The points that
I made this real quick. I screenshotted us and did it in real time. Asked it to make a Studio Ghibli style image here of us.
Hmm. That's
It did a
pretty
good
good.
job. It
There
did a
you
good
go.
job. No, that's pretty cool. I think it's like, I mean, it's only going to get better, right? It's only going to
Oh
get,
yeah.
I think Nick, you and I were having this conversation before, because I think one of the things that I think we wanted to talk about were the implications.
One thing that I haven't heard a lot of people make this comparison to, and it really resonates with me, and I know because the three of us grew up so closely together in age and geography and culture, um, we are the Napster generation. We are the music piracy generation, right? We grew up
Mm.
downloading free music, and we were on the side of the pirates culturally because we were not on Lars's side or Eminem's side or Dr. Dre's side. We were not rooting for the
They were
music
making
industry.
millions, and
We were making, and a great book, How the Music Got Free, talks about the factory in North Carolina where almost all the music got pirated out of. Amazing book. But, you know, I know how to use Photoshop because I stole Photoshop. And now I pay Adobe a bunch of money and have for years and years. But like as a software pirate by DNA, I don't know. There's something that predisposes me to be okay with all this AI stuff. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but it feels like the Napster moment to me. It's like music became infinity. Now creative is cartoons are infinity, and copywriting is infinity, and all these things are infinity, like music got.
and
I
the
I don't
think
truth
know.
is,
I think that's a really good way to sort of level set why we think a certain way. But the
Doesn't mean it's
why is
right.
not right, no, the why is not an answer for the should, right?
Yeah.
And so that distinction I think is key. And but I agree. I actually maybe you've said that to me now before, but I think that's a really great way to state it. You're
well, here's
right. There's this. Yeah, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, like Nick, like here's a great example. Is so you guys know this. My son is autistic, and um, we have been trying. There's a lot of, like, if you're talking about individuals on the autism spectrum, various tools for communication, right? And we've always been told, like, if we're having trouble with something, try a social story. A social story is a kind of animated, or a book or presentation or whatever it is, on a step by step, like, this is what's going to happen. This is because it helps to um, get through transitions, because it's one of the things, like rigidity and transitions are very hard for individuals on the spectrum. We've had trouble with our son having, like, instances of potty regression, and how do we reinforce those. And so we went through, like, all the medical issues. It was like, whoa, what the heck, like, we thought we were way past this.
Hmm.
um, so we did, like, medical tests and everything, and it got to the point of, like, nope, this is a behavior kind of thing. Have you thought about doing a social story? Well, yeah, like, we have. It never works. But there was this one instance with math. Brody had to do a new way of generalizing math, like generalization, taking a concept and apply it in general. Like, there's a simple thing of, like, there's value behind the number one. Like, one, Brody can look at the number one, know it's the number one, but generalizing it to understand that it's representative of something, right? So we had to connect those dots to things he likes. So it was no longer one as a number; it was one frisbee, two frisbees, like, utilizing interests in order to generalize concepts. And his teacher kind of went over that with how they kind of retrained him in math. And so as he gets these explosions of learning, reading, for instance, has become a huge thing. He's super into it. He's reading, he's spelling, he's all about it. And so I was like, man, what if we could take that personalization concept and things that he's interested in, put it into this new reading interest, in order to create a social story. Well, how the hell do I do that if um, if I can't am I going to draw it? I mean, like we've tried like clip art, we tried, and I had this all of a sudden, as GPT's model has gotten better. I've seen what it did with like Clark's um, character animation, and I was able to like create different instances of the same character. I had it develop a like bluey like design because he's into the bluey animation style,
Mm-hmm.
and created a character of him, of me, of his mom, of his dogs, of his house, of all these things. And so I was able to create a social story of these things that he really likes, and implement that behavior into the social story. I used ChatGPT. I gave it a background of everything that I needed, and kind of the behavior we were trying to think, the words that we use to communicate with Brody, put into and I actually created a book, and I sent that book off. I used InDesign and Illustrator, and I actually sent that book off and got it actually made, like pressed, and it's incredible that he's into it, he gets it, he reads it. I reference it when we're out, and so it's like I wouldn't have been able to do that. Should me as a parent of somebody on the spectrum, like there's no service to where it's like, oh, can I hire an animator to illustrate a book and write a book for me?
Not in a cost-effective way.
Not
No,
in
of
a
course not.
cost effective way, but if
No.
we're talking about like these are the tools to make life better, it's hard. Like it's like why couldn't I do that? Like is medicine not on the backs of other people's discoveries as well? Like I think we sit on the shoulder of giants at this day and age when it comes to technology, information, everything. Like we have to use it responsibly. Like that's on us. I think the ethical question isn't like should we use it? It's should we be using it responsibly? Is it responsible to do it for a baseball podcast? I don't know, but but yeah, that was my point of like there are use cases for utilizing those creative tools in a way to benefit, and not just to like for commercial benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think I mean, I don't want to dive this into a really deep ethics
Mm-hmm.
conversation, but there are absolutely benefits that will be amazing for humanity writ large because of this technology. And I mean, you could just look to the people you have, Isomorphic Labs and these other AI companies trying to basically cure all disease. And we've already made progress on that front. And we're going to be able to do so much in the space of health and medicine and wellness that, yes, I mean, and then of course you have the like amazingly touching stories like you're talking about to help individuals rather than society. And I mean, there it is that those are things that are reasonable to go into the conversation, and sort of like if you're just counting up points or whatever of like one for the good side in the ethics conversation, those things matter. And it could be the case that if you add up all the points, and that's a very like utilitarian way of looking at it, but to just look at it from that point of view, maybe the points do add up positively. And then that leads into like I don't know how much you guys know about the effective altruism movement, but like inside EA, there was the big movement around like the far future, right? So if all humans, if the majority of life is still yet to be born, then there's more moral consideration in the future than there ever has been in existence. And so if that's true, then all the things that you're doing right now are bigger because what you're doing right now matter for the moral consideration of everyone in the future.
Yep.
Now, there's a big conversation around that, and I'm not saying I advocate for that position or whatever, but if that's the case, then the technology that allows them to flourish the most could be way more important than sucking up all the internet's data to get to that point, right? So there are many different ways and different perspectives of how to actually look at this type of conversation. And in the end, it's kind of how you root your moral philosophy. It's where do you start from? What layer do you start from judgment of a moral consideration in the first place? And so, like, again, we didn't expect you to come on here and have all the answers, but I love the story, and I think that telling stories like that are important because it does show a really just sort of like really nice and actual useful like utility for this type of technology.
Yeah. And then like I think I posed this question to Jesse, when I was starting to get into some of the ethics, and we ran some like surveys on it, like for AI, and you know we're always trying to understand a little bit more about from a consumer perspective. Like, do you recognize AI? Are you okay with AI? Does it impact your buying decision? Would you think less of a brand? Those kind of things. And then the overall consumer impact, I think, to what you're speaking about, Nick, is I was like, oh man, I didn't understand the environmental impact of AI and therefore the computing power needed. But Jesse, you said it to me one time. It's like it's more of a question: is the juice worth the squeeze for the future, right? Like if we're making this
Yeah.
progress and it's
I mean,
able to impact us downstream at a level we can't even fathom yet, should we be okay with it today?
Yeah.
And Nick,
Well,
that's
I mean,
that's the question I think you were asking you as
yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean just really briefly, and just to kind of riff on the environmental impact. There's two things that stick out to me. One, Netflix is worse than AI right now. Like if you're doing large video streaming, you have more of an environmental impact than all the AI data centers going on right now. And then two, the technology itself is unique and different. Like okay, crypto's the worst. Well, Bitcoin rather than crypto. Bitcoin is just an energy suck for like libertarian ideology, and like that you can decide that that's better for or worse for the world, but like Bitcoin for the environment just sucks, right? But AI is different and unique in the technological space, better than video streaming, better than Bitcoin, because it's a technology itself that can actually improve the environmental impact that it's having. Because we've already seen how it's cut down on emissions and energy usage at certain data plants, at certain energy centers. And so, like, it itself can be a part of the solution, which is unique to all the other like technological advancements. Like a Google search has very minimal electric output, but we used to not have Google, so like Google searches themselves increased energy usage, and then came social media, and then came video streaming, and then came crypto, and then came AI, and so on and so forth. And so AI to me is really interesting, and then you just have the cultural side where you have all these companies who hopefully go through with the push towards nuclear and actually are going to implement those things because we do need a ton of energy to actually implement the types of data centers that they say they're going to build this decade. But anyways,
Mhm.
we'll get more into that later.
yeah.
But I
So
actually do think that's a good segue into this next section. Sorry, I feel like you were going there too, Jesse,
yeah, yeah.
of like the replacement. So we are obviously not replaced yet, and it's like a triple entendre. It's a bit tongue in cheek. We are not replaced yet. Hopefully, our viewers and listeners aren't replaced yet, and we want to help people stay unreplaced. Um, and so I'm gonna tee you guys up, and then I promise I'll shut up because I know I can ramble a lot on this front.
Thank goodness.
But yeah. So here's the way that I see it. Um, AI, if you think of AI's capabilities, think of them in chunks. It is good at discrete things. It can write text as good as it can right now. It can create images as good as it can right now, video, songs, audio, speech, etc. There's all these different things that it's good at right now. And you could grade them on like, okay, if I were to place these into any given job, I'm going to give it a C minus or a B or a whatever, right? And so you look at one, the progress we've already seen from the drop of GPT 3.5. I think of it November of 22 is like the boom of generative AI. That's
Hmm.
sort of the explosion. And so we see the advancement that we've gone through already in this short amount of time. You listen to the experts like Jesse, you and I were just talking about the recent Dwarkesh podcast where the engineers from Anthropic were on, and they were talking about, you know, look, there's just so much we're going to be able to do, even if the models don't get better, and they're going to get better, right?
Hmm.
They're like the advancement is coming. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And then you look at the promises of the biggest companies who say they're going to be investing $1 trillion plus this decade in building out the energy infrastructure to create these massive data centers to fuel all of these things. And then you have the geopolitical nature of this, where it's a basically maybe a winner take all race of USA versus China. And so you have a like global imperative of these two superpowers that aren't going to stop the growth, because the USA will not stop us from trying to beat China, and China will not stop themselves unless, well, we I won't get into that. But say there's this, so it goes all the way to the most important, biggest thing. So this technology has the letter grade that it has at creating what it does right now, and then we know it's going to get better. And so then the question becomes, what disruption will that have on any given industry? And of course, we all are in the advertising world, the marketing world, in sort of similar but different ways. Me as the developer, you guys more on the marketing side, brand strategy side, whatever. But the question is, and we've focused our conversation around, okay, what effect will this have inside our own industry? Because we can talk about any industry, but what will it have in our own industry? And for me, I see this as, I give it a current letter grade. As a developer, I think that, I don't know what letter grade. I give it maybe a B or something. But I believe it will get to an A plus in the near future. Not only because of the people I listen to, but my own experience with it. And so then when every chunk gets to an A plus, strategy, image creation, video, planning, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, how many people are needed? And okay, there's always the capitalist sort of incentive there. The people at the top are going to maximize their profit, and they are going to say, well, what's taking up my profit and I don't need them are the workers who are doing the things that I no longer need them to do, and so on and
It's
so
your
forth.
basic expense. It always will be.
Boom, 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 boom. And so, okay, it's not about the annihilation of agencies, but in the next 2 to 5 to 10 years, and you can take it at different iterations as you want, or at different ranges as you see it. How do you see this affecting the space of creative agencies?
Yeah,
I'll shut up.
I'll say this, like, how did it's already impacting. I think if you go through the trades, you will see multiple instances of continuous consolidation, layoffs, those things, and every single CEO is pointing to investment in AI, investment in making things more efficient, investment in and streamlining operations is kind of like the like corporate advertising buzzword that I continue to hear right now. Um, so I think that's the obvious like immediate impact is that there is a to your point, Nick, like there is a plan. It is only going to grow exponentially, right? The question that I think you're getting to is like where will be the disruption cutoff? Will it be we don't really need ad agencies anymore because we can do it through AI, or is it you know it's going to impact at a level and then it just won't anymore? That's something I don't know, right? But what I can tell you is that how we will make decisions on its impact to our uh, talent and our skill pool will be based on consumer receptivity to the output, right? That will never change. the consumer, because at the end of the day, like our clients are, we're at the basic like whims of the consumer and what they believe and what they say, and ultimately the action that they take with their dollar, right? That's the truth. I think right now it's hard to say. There's only been a few instances of big brands utilizing AI for something, and some of them are like gimmicky, right?
Well,
I
like
remember like
Coca-Cola did the
Coca
one, and they
Coca
were like, "We're using AI." It's like a PR move that they even
for the
do it.
trades, for the
Right.
trades, not even for the consumer. So the question will be, once it gets to a mainstream use, think about how the creator economy has gone from, oh man, I follow this person, to it is a profession. You ask more kids now what they want to be. More of them want to be YouTube stars than YouTube influencers than they want to be basketball, football, or baseball players, right? Like, or musicians. They would rather do that, and it's crazy. And where has that lost a little bit of its um, steam is the implication of like us in marketing and advertising utilizing them as a channel to get our message out. So the question will always become is, who does the consumer trust? Do they trust um, do we trust TV advertisement? Do we trust reviews? Do we trust consumer reports in magazines? Do we trust out of home billboards? Do we trust influencers? That's going to be the question, is like, where is the elastic, where is the elasticity of trust and authenticity as it relates to AI? And where is that cutoff? If consumers say, you know what, I don't see a difference in this ad or that ad, and it doesn't matter, and I like this one because it's better subjectively, that's where we're going to go. And so if that one was made with AI, we're going to keep optimizing towards that. And if that one was made with humans and the AI one doesn't respond as well, that's what we're going to do. At the end of the day, it will be consumer behavior that will tell us where the impact will be. The question, for us within the industry, it will be, how do we continue to make sure that we're developing things, whether through AI, because this is the same thing as like utilizing in Hollywood, utilizing the what is it, the void versus practical effects and practical stages, right? The void is that big green screen, like 3D thing that they use now
Sure.
for a lot of like, say like Star Wars or what have you, Marvel. I saw a thing where it was like, where I wouldn't want to be today is like a CGI um, artist. That's a place that's ripe for disruption right now, because you don't need that level, or can it get us there faster? I think those are the things. Like, I would imagine like in our field, probably junior copywriters are feeling like, oh shit, like can that make better social copy than I can? I think
I have a question for
things.
you, actually.
Yeah.
It just kind of popped in my head because I agree with the track you're going on. I wonder, do you have any thoughts on, okay, if you were to advise that junior copywriter on how to sort of stave off that worry as much as possible, is there anything that you would advise them to do? I mean, is it so? Demis Hassabis, the leader of DeepMind, right, at Google, I saw him in an interview. He said, "Become a ninja at the tools," and that's kind of where my mind goes.
That's
Like
yep. Well, I would say that Jesse and I probably fall under the same. It's the James Andrews. I always go back to that, Jess, of like, earn your Boy Scout badge, right?
Yeah.
And
How do you know if
and
the toys are any fun if you don't play with them?
yeah, it's you got to earn it. You got to do it. You
this
figure
guy has
out.
quotes.
Yeah, you gotta you gotta figure out basically where that can help you, hurt you, it's a SWOT analysis on your own career, right? It's like, where can it help enhance my strengths? Where can it enhance my weaknesses? Where are the opportunities of utilizing it? And what is the threat against me? And how do I protect against that threat? For say a junior copywriter, I would say lean into it. How do you know if so much of like what we do at a resource level is utilize junior copywriters to version out 10 different, social ads or 50 different display ads. Do that, do it quick, make it good, and move it on, because that's disposable media.
Be done in a half hour and
And
show up
and
say,
say,
what else can I do?
What else can I do?
Yeah.
That's exactly it, man.
The
Go ahead, Jesse.
The story that resonates with me, and I've said it before, and I know we're want to be sensitive to your schedule, Cory, because I know you got to pick your son up. But when I was at doing TV news right before college, I worked at WJCL, local Market 100, ABC affiliate, Fox News affiliate news. I would drive out, and I was the shooter. I was the camera guy, camera on my shoulder, and there was a 3-person crew. It was a reporter, and it was a producer, and it was me. And so local news would send these 3-person crews out everywhere, and this was 99, 2000. And there was one dude that was a one-man band, right? That went, set up his own sticks, his tripod, set the camera up, scribbled in his notebook, went in front of the camera, reviewed it, did the in front of the camera, 1-person crew. And everyone said, well, that is great if you can find it, but these guys are unicorns. You will never be able to replace the 3-person crew. I fast forward, I go to college, 2002 to 2005. I was 3 years away in Athens, come back, no great jobs in Savannah. So I went back to the TV station, like, hey, maybe I'll come back and work for you. A, they were only going to give me a 50-cent raise. And B, the entire place was one-man bands. There was not a single person, a 3-person crew they were deploying, right? And that's the tools. It's like those people all got really used to the tools. The incentive was clear, what was going to happen. And then the journey there happens pretty predictably. I don't know that we have that predictive of an outcome now, but what you're saying, Nick, what you're saying, what Demis Hassabis is saying, the 4 of us are all in great company there. Become the ninja. Yeah, 100%.
No,
Cory,
that's exactly it.
Thank you so much for this first conversation. You're our first interview guest. And before we hit record, we just looked and we just surpassed 100 subscribers on YouTube, and the views are much higher than that. And that's not including podcasts. So for those of you audience who stuck around, thank you so much. We're going to have Cory back plenty of times, I imagine. So as much as he'll tolerate the invitation, because we have N number of angles, directions, topics to explore. And so Cory, if you can plan to be a regular, man, we'd love to have you back soon.
I love it, and these are awesome conversations, and quite frankly, they're ones that I don't think we're having enough of. So I think props to you guys for doing it, because I'm going to share it in my networks and continuously do, because we need more. We need more conversation around it.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody. Nick, any final words?
I think that's it.
All right. Take care. Talk soon. Adios.
See you guys.